Hi, Patrice. Jeff here. Just saw your post that appeared yesterday afternoon. I didn't have time to work on it yesterday and wanted to, but I had more time this morning to about the what do you think you're paying for? Is it words? Or are you really paying for change? And I agree and I don't agree. I agree and I don't agree on it, and I'm gonna explain it. And I think something that triggers this is what Renato has been saying over the past month or two, I say. Uh, I don't get to go to the conference where he talks, no travel budget, but I've been seeing that he's been saying translation is free. You pay for change. You pay for project management, and I really agree with that. What you're paying for in the you're not paying for the actual translation, which the cost, what it's into, what is per word, which is the kind of the way to pay, which I've done a lot of talks about and publications about the cost and all that. And the speed is that we're making the price of the words to reflect what is project management basically, and a lot of other things. Unless, like I've sold projects where I sell the project managers as a separate fee, completely separate fee, and so we're paying for each part of it and all that, including the branding, all that. So kind of depends who's selling it, but the kind of the global thing has been for a long time is you pay everything in the price per word fee, which it makes it really difficult because not everybody's in the price of the word is actually doing a lot of these other parts, which some do. It kind of that's why the price is different, right? But the but I think what got to is that what you're paying for is the project management aspects. Kind of an interesting way of looking at it. Now here we're saying is that translators and interpreters don't translate words; they convey ideas to make impact. I would say that we're still paying for a service, which is to convert words from one language to another. That's what we're doing. The reason why I don't agree that I really believe in the impact part. There's no part. The goal of this of the communication, whether it be monolingual or multilingual, is to have impact because that's what we always wanted to have things. And there are certain points that you're making here. There are lots of examples and who it's what the worth is and all that. I agree with that. Totally agree. But I don't believe that we. The reason why I don't believe that we're paying for impact is because we cannot judge whether or not there's impact or not. And you, as a translator, anyone doing the translation, that's why I don't do any translation work myself anymore. Is I spend more time on the strategic parts to actually show the impact. Right? That's what I do. I do this, but a lot of things are not read, and that's why I'm saying that it's not so much that because you can pay for a translation, it's never read, right? And if it's never read, it doesn't have impact. So, and there are lots of examples. I mean, look at the common examples of like the a watch, right? I got an Apple Watch. Did I read the translation or the the in or the documentation about the Apple Watch? Never, right? Now, there is some documentation on it, and there's actual documentation for my phone. There's documentation for all kinds of things, right? Which I've never read, and most people don't read unless they have a problem, right? And and that's the thing to have it more intuitive software in these devices that make it so you can have inline help too, so online help or in-app help, or what do you call these things, right? Which can be multilingual, so that you can have it built into the device to make it easier to access. Right, you have to go look for a manual, some document somewhere in a PDF or paper, or whatever. But a lot of documentation is not read, so a lot of translation is not read, and this is why I don't believe we pay for impact because you cannot. It's the goal of the government or the company or whoever is the NGO that's doing this to actually measure the impact, which a lot of them don't do. Okay, some do, some don't. And the hard part of that is to be able to do the research afterwards, right, to see what the impact is. And some are getting, some do. You have NGOs, especially those in the health industry, kind of the field. They'll measure the number of ambulances and stuff, and all these things, and how many people, were able to be, or not healed, but they were able to do something there are some measurements that were done, but most I'm looking at the whole range, right? That there's a lot that's just not measured, and sometimes really difficult to measure. Uh, the thing for the medical service, that's easy to do because you do a number of appointments, doing things. You have, a number of surgeries done, a number of visits. That's kind of, you can actually measure those to a certain point, but it's really hard to measure whether the person's actually, read the document or done something with it. Actually reading the document, it's really hard to do, to measure that. That's why I put videos up on YouTube. For even my CV, when I'm applying for a job, I put a video up, put a video CV. Why? Because, and it'll cover letter. Because I can see if the person's read it or not, right? Because they click on the link, and I know if they read it. And I can see, and I've had this happen for jobs I've applied for, that I can see if they've read it or not, watched it or not. So that helps me see if it had impact, right? And if they do an interview, right? And sometimes not. I can tell there's been some politics behind because they had already pre-chosen people, right? I could figure this out. So the impact in reading or not that's the role of the organization that's actually sponsoring the translation, right? It's not the role of the translator to actually measure the impact. And usually in most cases, the translators can't even know who's actually asking for the translation, who's actually responsible upstream to actually ask for this thing to the whoever's organizing translation on the customer side or whatever, to going down, right? And these are some of the factors that make it hard to say that you're actually paying for impact. Because if we pay for impact, then we would assume that everybody's potentially reading it. Now, it's probably easier to measure some types of impact in health services, right? Because especially medical, especially like hospitals and stuff, where you have a lot of high populations of people in certain large cities, right? So there's probably a little bit easier to measure these things because you can ask for people when they go to the visit, have you read the document? Have you read this stuff to get here, right? I mean, there's things you can do like that. It's a lot easier to do. But in I'm talking about all ranges, right? Everything. I'm talking about the impact. You can measure probably the impact on medication, right? I get medication here, and I'm supposed to take it 3 times a day for something, right? These things you can probably measure because the doctor can say, "Did you actually take your stuff as done?" And you can see the results, right? See, so but like I said, take the devices, take the things that you never read, right? There are lots. I've got tons of stuff, and I know lots of people that say they never read documentation. I ask them about this all the time. I ask people out there, "Do you read the stuff, right, that you get in whatever language it's in?" And the answer is usually never. So that's why I'm saying it's hard to pay for impact. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have impact. I'm not saying that. And I think where you're going to, and I can see this at the end, is that's where the value of linguistic services is how do you present your service to prospects. Now, what you're saying here is a commercial hook, which is good. It's a business hook to say, what's the value of my services? Do I understand what your need is as an organization, communicating what you want to do and get the impact that you want to be able to do? That's a reason to be able to sell your service to them, is to be able to hook into their value system and their service, right? And that makes total sense. It's just that at the actual production level, we aren't able to say that it will have impact, right? Now, we believe it will, and there are some things, the interesting thing here is some things that I remember giving a talk in 2015 on this about talking about kind of the areas in translation that are taboo areas, right? Was one of the parts of the talk in Lyon. And the thing that I said is, what are kind of the types of things that most translators don't want to work in, right? There are certain fields, certain things that they don't want to work in. And some of those were porn, military, those types of things, right? There are things that translators in general, on a certain kind of value system, don't want to be involved in, right? In translating, they'll refuse to translate casino stuff, right? Gambling. Now, not everybody does that. Not everybody said that, but there are a lot of people that don't want to do that. And the answer was pretty consistent across the group of people there in the room, probably about 50 people. And so there is that can impact us to show we don't want to do that. So we want an impact of not doing and boycotting this field, right? So that's a different type of impact on showing that we're not aligned on those types of topics. So yeah, I mean, I agree and I don't agree, but because we just can't measure things, and I like to be involved in things that measure, right? So because I'm doing this, I get this book, this video series out on evaluating quality based on customer experience and sales and all that, and it's looking from a different point of view. It's not looking from the internal view. It's looking on the customer-facing point of view of have we actually achieved what we want to do according to what they wanted. And I like to be in that arena to be able to see, was that protocol, or was that something we put in place in the translation, whatever it may be, it can be anything, software. Did it actually have the impact, right? And can we measure that to the measure quality they expect? And that's where this thing happens, right? Now, and it's cool to be able to say your goal is to do the translation is to have it influence the ideas, converting the ideas to another language for an eventual impact there. But the hard thing is, I mean, it's a good way to sell it, right? It's just the reality isn't always there because of the number of the volume of translated content that is actually read. So, but this is, I mean, I totally agree. I sell it this way too, right? But in the reality, it's usually not. So that's why I try to make sure that I'm involved in things. I try to get involved in things that actually do have the impact at the end, right? And I try to not get involved in things that are just doing it just to be able to get the job done and to have it, because I choose not to do those anymore, right? Some things just don't interest me. And I want to have impact. A lot of us want to have impact, and the key is being involved in things that do have the impact and be able to measure that impact, right? But that's a hard thing to do. That's a really hard thing to do, and it takes a lot of time. And I've been involved in a lot of that, and I've done a lot of things that measured. I trained people to be able to do it, and I made sure that it was able to measure on them too, that they could produce the same type of level of productivity. And then to show that the impact of them, that they can actually have the productivity to actually get the content out and do things. It could be measured, right? But it takes a lot of time to do that, and you have to have the desire and the willingness to do it, even if you're not allowed supported to actually do these types of measures in some kind of tangible way. So it's now we can speak that we got a lot of customer experience, user experience type of stuff, that their goal is to kind of measure things and measure through surveys and all kind of things that do that, but that's not always done. So that's why I'm hesitant to say that you're paying for impact. But I get it what you're saying, right? I totally get it. So thanks for listening.